Welcome back, everyone, to another episode here today, and we are going to talk about some roster mania. If you find yourself coming back on the regular, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and check the description out. Click the links to my Discord, Twitter, Twitch to catch some of my streams and updates, and leave a like if you enjoy today, and we'll get right into the video. I'll be doing a deeper dive into the BO6 season coming up for the CDL. I'll have a roster tier ranking coming out later and more free agent news coming out in the next week. So be on the lookout for that. But today I want to talk about the new super team that has formed. LAT is going back in and they have Ghosty staying, Envoy, Scrap, and Hydra are coming to this team. And for a while, you see this like every year there's a new super team, you're like, oh, like Hydra going to Optic. Like, what if that actually happens? Well, LAT finally made it happen. Nadeshot even took a smaller page cut because he knew this team can be special if he does make it happen. And we'll get into the players. Let's get into Envoy first. He did have a down MW3 season, very inconsistent, but this BO6 seems to be a mix of Cold War and BO4 without Stim. And Envoy's best game probably was BO4 when he was that slaying role. He was that heavy slayer, just going out, everyone was around him. But now he's moved to more of an objective based player, which is perfect for this team. And I think having Hydra, Ghosty, and Scrap is going to make him play more consistent. And I don't know what it was last year that just made him play so inconsistent. It was probably sort of the maps and him running an SMG. I mean, some of the SMGs, like the God tier SMGs, they did not struggle, but like him having to run MCW sometimes and then switching back to the rival probably was what tripped him up. So hopefully he can get back to form in BO6. And his S&D was always good, but he's been slacking in hardpoint. But with having Ghosty and Scrap, which I think this could be part of it too, having Ghosty and Scrap as his backline, he should be able to have better numbers and not necessary. He's not going to have a 1.5 or a 1.2 like KD. He's not going to have that. But if he can just stay around a 1.0 and be a consistent player, that's all this team needs because Scrap is going to be positive, Hydra's going to be positive, and Ghosty is the definition of consistent. So having them three, if he just stays consistent, this team's going to go far. The biggest worry for Envoy was he is the biggest worry in this team because of his MW3 season. But Scrap believes in this guy because he wouldn't have chose to pick him to come with him if he didn't believe in Envoy. And for this game reminds me exactly of the Vanguard team almost, where he had Octane and Draza or Kenny in the back line, and him and Draza or Kenny in the front line, kind of pushing, being a Slayer sub. Now, Kenny or Hydra would be better than Kenny in this respect, and Scrap is going to be better than what they had in Draza. But Octane, I would say Octane's better than Ghosty, but having a better overall team than even that team did, he's going to fit in so well, and he played really good in Vanguard. So, and that was a all MP40 map. So, and when he could just stick and you can actually run an MP40 or an SMG the whole time, he's going to do good. And I think he's going to get back to his consistent play this season. They're going to have really good. And he's going to take over. I call it the Kismet role for this team. He's basically going to be what Kismet was for Hydra. He's going to slide in first for Hydra. He's going to be that playmaker in S&D because S&D is probably the biggest worry for this team because Scrap ain't the best at S&D. He is at times. Same with Hydra. Hydra is really good, but if they're shutting Hydra down, a lot of times in YSL, they kind of faltered if they were shutting that first player down. So hopefully this doesn't happen to LAT. Cinder is coming over from NYSL Cloud9, so that is going to be good. So their S&D should be pretty solid like it was on NYSL. But next we have Hydra. He is, he's one of the top three SMGs in the game. I personally have him top one. I I mean, I'm a Cloud9 MYSL fan, but Hydra is just that kind of guy. He is so good. And like Invasion, they literally would just have Hydra go, and they would play A by themselves, or they would play B by themselves, and he would just get A by himself, and he had caused so much havoc. They had that much faith in him. And early in the season, why they weren't performing well, Hydra wasn't at that peak level. Then once Hydra got to form, they took over. And Kismet still wasn't having a good year at all for his standards of MW2, and Hydra still was slaying out. I think he was third or fourth in KD, and that is crazy for a sub to be that high. And him and Scrap are gonna be battling for the MVP throughout the season because I mean this last year, I mean it's Simp, Scrap, Hydra. That was the team for MVP, and now two of them are on the same team. Also, along with Hydra, Envoy is going to fit into the perfect role to be running right beside him, where he can go kind of rat around and Envoy can kind of lead the charge for him and pick up the dirty work while he's slaying out. And then we'll get into Ghosty. He led this team last year after getting dropped from Optic, and it clearly was a great decision for LAT to pick him up and make him the cornerstone of the team. He carried them throughout the season, was clearly their standout player. He was a consistent player throughout the season, and with this new team, he's going to have to play like Dashy, where he is getting a lot of hill time, holding spawns, holding lanes. Basically, how Dashy took over Octane, Ghosty's going to have to take over Dashy. That's how it's going to have to be. Dashy played so well last year, even for holding a lot of hill time, and he just clutching in S&D. He played so well. And that's what Octane was for the Vanguard. Now S&D he wasn't that player, but in Hardpoint, he held down the lanes, held down rotations, and that's what this team is going to need. They're gonna because Scrap and Hydra is just gonna go out and slay, so they need that player to hold the back line and hold them. So when they pick up them kills, it's flipping spawns and doing that. And he carried a nasty Joe Deceives and Crimp team last year, and even when they were going out, he was still performing. And then once the others, like Joe Deceased, picked it up, they all just started. I mean, you can tell the team just all believed in each other, and I feel like that's just what Ghosty brings. He brings that team, and he just wants to grind. And then finally, for this player, we'll get into Scrap. Scrap is the best AR in the game right now, and he proved that last year. I mean, even with Envoy struggling and Insight not having a good year, he, besides Major One, he carried the team throughout the year, and he was just dropping numbers and numbers. And even on Rio, when he had to use a sub for the first time, he struggled, but they eventually made that map halfway usable, and he used a sub to great effect. So that was really exciting to see him, and hopefully that is the one thing that scares me. No, second thing, besides Envoy, that scares me with this team is if they have to go to a third sub. I think Scrap's good enough that he can work with a third sub, but with some of these maps looking so small, it looks like you might have to be running three subs, and Scrap on AR is so good, and it's going to be hard to take him off, but they're going to have to take him off at times. So that is one thing that Scrap is going to have to adjust to, running the sub more often, but I think he will be fine, and this team is going to be great for the year. Now we will get into who left LAT. Joe Deceives. He is now on Ultra to run besides Kleenex as a help Slayer sub along next to him, which was lacking from Envoy last year, meaning Kleenex did not have that consistent backbone that Envoy was supposed to be last year, but now he has Joe Deceives, which Joe Deceives, I think, had an amazing year last year, and his versatility in S&D really proved to show at the end of the year, and it was really exciting to see him perform. He is very underrated, and I think this is going to be a good fit next to Kleenex. Their S&D should be unbelievable between Kleenex, Insight, and Joe Deceives. And having Beans on their team, control should be no problem. And we should just see. I'll get into Ultra and their teams later. Next up, we have Crimp, which he is on Cloud9. He was the shot caller for Thieves in S&D. So he will give that prowess to Cloud9 now. Since they lost Cinder, they have Crimp now. He's going to be great to work alongside of. And coming in next, we thought it was going to be Nero, but now it's going to be Mac. Melts is coming back to the league. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to let Mac roam and slay out, or they're going to let Crimp kind of go wild, because Crimp has been inconsistent in the past. He's a really up or down player. He's either getting slayed out or he's slaying out. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role they're going to have him on. I think he's going to be more of an OBJ, kind of ratty, and getting the spawns, being the just an overall good, solid player, while they're going to let Mac roam. And then the last player, Nasty, went to Surge. When some maps went to SMG, Nasty was. Is he going to be able to keep up with the pacing of the map, especially with Surge? Because Abusa cannot go to a sub. We saw it last year. Does not work. So Nasty's going to have to run that third sub. And is he going to be able to do that with extreme success, or is he going to struggle with that? That's going to be one big thing that the Surge team is going to have to find out. But in the tier rankings, we'll get into that. And with that, how do you guys think LAT is going to do this year? Do you have them winning just one major, maybe two, maybe three? How many do you think they're going to win? Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.